Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Barbarians. This, of course, is a 2021-2022 film. Like it keeps kind of shifting or changing whenever I go on and figure out what year it came out. I'm assuming it's a 2021 film. So, currently, this is a movie you can rent or buy upon the Google Play Store. And because it's not currently on like Amazon's or anything like that, but I'm going to give you a free option to be able to watch this film so you can go ahead and see it for the first time if you do desire after I talk about it. You can go on to a Google search on a Google Play Store, just a Google search, and search for an app called Letter C Movies app. So go ahead and find that app through a Google search, download the app, and be able to see whatever you'd like for absolutely free. If you want to go on and you can possibly pay to not have ads through your movies, but that's usually about the only fee that app goes into or has for that service. If you so choose to do that, but you can go and watch ads and watch a film like any other normal app, it seems. So there also is another app that I can have you Google search that is to be Fox HD Movies. So Fox HD Movies is the app. Really, the logo will say Fox HD Movies, but the title will say something different. But if you say Fox HD Movies through the search, it'll be fine. You can go on and find that the title says Play 1080p HD Movies. So either way, you can say that you can Google search those apps and be able to find these movies. Really, you could also go out of your way to go onto a Google Play Store if you're already heading that way anyways. You can go on and download an app called TV Crush, and by golly, you'll be able to see an app once you search through a word called TV Crush, and you'll see an app with an HD movies with a crown on the side of it. You can download that app. Not quite sure if you're going to see Barbarians, but there's quite a decent selection of movies that you can say that you can see for absolutely free. Probably new releases, a bunch of kind of stuff. If you kind of search through the engine, you might be able to find via there. Convenient for you to be able to say that you've seen a number of things for free. So, with that said, what is Barbarians about? And then we'll go into the spoilers about this whole movie. So, Barbarians, of course, is really mostly tied to a guy named Lucas who is consistently going on and doing either these vlogs or going on and doing this commercial about going and having people live at this place called Gateway. This Gateway residence, because Lucas, of course, is to go on and have this certain stone be called Gata, and so he realizes that the the other way, like the kind of the way of which that people are to say Gata, it is Gateway. So he goes on and he's doing all these vlogs, going on and talking about the stone in the background, and so he's a vlogger. And so we go on and have Lucas and his wife, Chloe, go on and meet with both Eva and Thomas, because Eva is to reveal this other stone that she is to present within this residence. And it seems like these pieces are a work of art. And so we go on here and have these four just kind of eat dinner together. And so all of a sudden, the further and further we go on into this dinner, the more we start to see that all four of these people, well, mostly just Lucas and Adam, start to become more and more within this dinner at odds with one another. And so those odds end up having them almost wrestling with one another. And all of a sudden we have a ding-dong at the door, and we have four men who all decide to tie these people up with a certain goal in mind to kind of tear through this house, but to really just to go on and go after one person. and everyone else is just really just there. So we have this kind of like humiliating of a person, which all of a sudden spins around into people trying to fight for survival, fight for their lives, fight their way out of this house to survive. So, in all honesty, the real, like, the main event, the reason why we're all here watching this film, because somebody might have seen the trailer and is coming in here trying to be like, well, like, how much are we really gonna see of the trailer parts? So really, it kind of feels like the trailer part is to make it seem like throughout this entire movie we are gonna get like the guys going in and like tying these people up and humiliating this guy, and then kills start. It feels like we're gonna have that throughout this whole movie. Not really. It feels like there honestly is a build up to that, to the point of us possibly having the last 30 to 40 minutes, or probably out of 90 minutes, really just focusing on that. So most of this film is just like the build up of these characters uh, to, I guess, invest in them. But then again, like there's a lot of points here where I would just go on throughout the first like 50 to 60 minutes and just go on and say like, why do some of these things have to be they're fun. Like it feels like quite a bit of this movie does feel like life. It does feel honest. Um and that really tells you that all these characters are really good at their job, to kind of really be convincing here. But I'm just like, man, there is just a lot of one character, and like I feel like out of like the four people, like I was kind of interested in Eva and Adam's story, rather than Lucas and Chloe for a cluster of this film. And then once we get to that dinner, I'm like, oh, finally, we got them like all together. I'm like, okay. And there's stuff that I just don't feel is like really explained throughout this film. And then I'm like a little confused going on like, wait a minute. So like, what is this? And then they kind of explain it later somewhat, which I'll get into that when we get into spoilers. So the grading for this movie, like, I honestly want to go on and say that this goes on into a positive movie, but it's hanging on by a thread. Like this movie, if you go on and you really like, if you have, because there's too many of these kinds of home invasion kind of movies. Really a good thing to have like thought about would be like, is this movie as good as The Strangers, You're Next, or like any other kind of Evil at the Door? Which didn't I haven't seen all of that, but like the concept of it is kind of refreshing and interesting, and like it just kind of breaks down as like your normal run of the mill home invasion kind of movie. Uh, from what I've kind of heard about it from the back end of it all, but and I've kind of seen other home invasion movies, and like to me, like I just like positive, but really I'm just like, shouldn't the focus been on the home invasion part and not the uh like there was a lot of eating up of time in this movie that just kind of felt apparent here. And like I don't know, like the the approach of this film, the kind of the beginning is just like, okay, it feels like they're setting things up, but like through like this whole like commercial and thing, and I'm just like, this movie is just a rough sell for possibly for me to go on and just be like, yeah, definitely thumbs up. Like, no, it's like it just feels like a light, okay film that I wish they could have gone and done a lot more with. Um, is what I could say here, because you have to compare it to a bajillion home invasion movies, and once you do that, it just is a film that just doesn't go anywhere, doesn't go far enough, just like, and that's sad to say because like um there are bits and pieces of this movie that I'm just like, okay, like this is interesting, but it doesn't go enough of anywhere within the time period that it has. It just like doesn't get creative enough. It's just kind of a like it's basically as interesting as its trailer, and that's about as far as it goes. So with that said, and I feel bad because I actually like a lot of these actors that are in this film. I just saw the girl that plays Eva on From. I just saw the guy that plays Adam. Like I've seen him on a number of things, like Misfits and Game of Thrones and all kinds of things. Um, so yeah, it's just kind of like it sucks when I'm going on. I'm like, yeah, I don't really like this film, but like it is what it is. So check out home invasion movies like You're Next or The Strangers or a cluster of other films that I could probably go on and probably at some point while I'm reviewing this probably talk about. Uh, like this almost feels uh, like I like wanted to like build this movie up. Is it like it has this like knock knock thing about it, like the Keanu Reeves movie, where like you're kind of having these two girls make their way to Keanu's place in that movie, and all things seem really innocent for a long stretch of time, but then all of a sudden you go on and you find out why these girls were really at Keanu's place, and that becomes kind of a technical home invasion movie, but so so this movie has kind of like a build like Knock Knock technically has. And so that's why I was trying to like think in my brain. I'm like, okay, well, there's other home invasion movies. But let me know in the comments below if you went and saw Barbarians before you went on here. You're like, oh yeah, I saw this movie. Because really, there are convenient ways to say that you've seen this movie at some points or time. So with that said, I'm going to go out of my way to say that it's about that double five time territory. Let's just go into spoilers about this film, and let's go out of our way to say that it is spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about the time we can spoil this movie. Barbarians. Barbarians. So immediately going into this film, we open with a commercial. So Lucas here is to go on and like do this kind of very cliche-ish commercial of a course about this residence that he is to call Gateway. And so Lucas is to go on and show kind of several different sides of him in this commercial, which I'm like, hey man, like really it's kind of cool that like Lucas is like we probably have Tom here who plays Lucas is like, hey man, like this is my big break, and maybe I can go on and kind of get like, because this really is like a portfolio builder. It seems like for certain characters to kind of show certain sides of themselves. So this could be it for certain characters. So kind of get some resume building stuff for a lot of characters. So going on in this movie, we have Lucas, who is to explain that previously at this residence there was this family called the Wicks, and so we go on and show like a number of these guys all together, and so it seems what had happened is the father of this family was to go on and lose this place because supposedly somewhere in the story Lucas was to steal this from them. And so the father of this family had a heart attack. So, and really a lot of people are blaming Lucas on that. And Lucas is like, well, no, like, I just so happened to be the right guy at the right time. Like, there's no, like, harm done. It just so happened that way. So, anyways, so Lucas goes on and does this commercial and is to try to promote this residence and promote that there, of course, is to be Eva's work kind of put in the center of all this, kind of this stone, of course, that she is to make. So we go on here and we have it where it's possible that both Eva and Adam are going to become this resident at this gateway residence place. So, because we have Eva, who's this artist, and it seems that Adam is to be this director, and it seems that during this time we have Adam, who is trying to work on possibly a screenplay or some kind of like trying to write this film. And so Adam in the beginning of this movie is jogging, all of a sudden seeing this wolf off to the side that is to have his kind of legs clipped by this barbed wire. Adam tries to do the right thing here and sees if he can possibly help this wolf, and the wolf kind of snaps at him, and so Adam's like, well, you. And so we go on, we have Adam who just walks off. So all of a sudden we have Eva who meets up with Dan here, and so they start to go through the house, and all of a sudden we have Adam who is to make it through the house also, and come to find out that same exact wolf is to be there in their house. I would have been freaked out. So all of a sudden we have Eva and we have Adam who realize there's this wolf in this house. We go on, we have Dan who is to realize it's there, so he snuffs it out with his coat, sadly. If you're animal lovers, I'm sorry, but that's what happens in the film. So Dan is to go on and carry this thing out and to haul it out. And later on in the film, Adam is talking to Lucas, and he goes on and he's taking credit for what technically Dan did. And like Adam is telling Lucas, hey, don't tell Eva about it, but like that's what happened. And so then Lucas later on is to tell Eva about that whole event, and then Eva is to just go on like, yeah, like like just convincingly just like, yeah, sure you did that, sure. So we go on into this movie, and so like I said, after Adam is to kind of like try to clean up this wolf's blood, Adam goes on to go into his room, I guess, to work on his story or his screenplay or whichever. So Adam starts working, and then he goes on and he starts to just Google himself because, like, I don't know, he just wants to kind of see if, like, he's important, if there's a lot of pictures of him, like, to just kind of, like, I guess, see his worth, or to possibly go on and, I don't know, like, kind of just see if he's still in the limelight or not. So we go on into these photos and see them both together. So all of a sudden Eva is to walk in, and Eva's like, well, hey, do you have a minute? And so both Eva and Adam are kind of talking about like wanting to build a family here, and Adam's just like, well, yeah, like I'm on board. So now we go on, and now we have the other side of things. We have Lucas and Chloe. So Lucas and Chloe are going to the Gata Stone, and so like they're driving their way there, and we of course have it where Lucas is practicing this speech that he's gonna give via his vlog later on, and so Lucas is going on and practicing this whole speech, and he's asking Chloe, who's going on to her phone and putting all these like Snapchat filters with her face or his face to just kind of be fun, because this isn't actually live, it's just something goofy for them to do. And so Lucas goes on and he is to try to practice his story, and at some points he asks like Chloe, it's like, well, hey, should I be sad here? Should I like pretend like I'm crying? And so on and so forth. And Chloe's like, well, yeah, you should probably be sad during that part. I'm like, oh my God. Like, we're having these guys that are just kind of like pretending to kind of break this scene down, and what should they do? So we we go on and we have Lucas, who is making it to the Gate of Stone, and he's like right there. And while he's going on and doing this whole speech, somebody like knocks his phone down, and it's to kind of like take like Lucas. So all of a sudden, I guess because Lucas is to have a fight with this guy, maybe it's security, maybe like we don't know. It doesn't show. So Lucas all of a sudden is now a million miles away from the Gata stone, to where you can just kind of see it in the distance. He has to like point to it. So I'm like, okay, take two. I guess it's lucky that wasn't a live thing, right? So Lucas goes on and he is to start this speech. And there's a moment where, of course, he mentions that Wick's guy, who, of course, is to pass away. And so he's just kind of like talking about this sad moment and this and that. Adam is going on watching this video and is like, oh, all right. So, like, having Adam kind of prepare for Lucas making his way to this place. So, so we go on here, and so we have all four of them make it to dinner. Everybody is kind of cordial at first. And I say that for a reason. So we go on and start to like make dinner for everybody, desserts and all that jazz. So we go on and at one point are having like Lucas kind of just being this like aggressive guy during this dinner, because Adam is to tell Lucas about this whole Fox story, and that he took care of it all himself, and that also Lucas is to give Adam this drug of sorts. And so Adam is to look at it, it's like, seriously, this is really it? And Lucas is like, yeah. So we don't exactly know what this drug does, but I'm guessing like through a number of other movies and other films, like there is these dots that you can go on and like put into people and start to have these like hallucinations and start to really trip out. And I guess with Lucas, like maybe Adam put a little too much in his coffee, because man, does this guy just start to like be very caveman-ish, and it's kind of wild. So, anyways, like I was kind of thinking that like this is maybe like sleep medication or something like that. I didn't know. So like I thought it was like a normal thing. I didn't think it was like weird hallucination drugs. But I guess that's what it is. So we go on into this dinner, and so they sit down, and so while they're talking about things, at one point we go on and we have Lucas, who, of course, to call Adam a wussy, let's just say, because of course Adam is to go on and like get the food and make the food, and so Lucas is just calling Adam out as being a wussy. So really, if something is to rhyme with wussy, then you'll know what I'm talking about. So that's what he says consistently here. So Lucas and of course Lucas, Adam, Eva, Chloe, the four of them go on this dinner. And so we at one point have it where they're talking about like drinking, and it seems that Chloe is refraining from drinking any alcohol. And so immediately the first question is like, well, how long are you? And Chloe's like, oh, because yeah, like if the girl's refraining from alcohol, it's like obviously she's pregnant. So This girl is to admit that technically she is pregnant. She's like 10 weeks pregnant. And so that all of a sudden is to have Adam at some point go on to light a cigarette, and is to notice outside that that fox that was killed is still just kind of chucked off to the side of this house, and so Adam and someone is probably gonna have to deal with it. So Adam is also just kind of checking on these sounds and is to realize that these birds just kind of come out of nowhere and scares the crap out of him. So Adam goes back to the house and goes into where Chloe is, which is the bathroom. And Adam confronts Chloe in the bathroom because I guess both Adam and Chloe had had an affair at some point, and that was right around the time that she had gotten pregnant. So really, Adam is saying here, it's like, well, like, can this be mine kind of thing? And so Chloe's like, well, even if we did have that one time, like, we're going to completely forget about it, that you even were to have gone on and been with me. And so Adam is just like, well, okay, but it doesn't really end there exactly. So they go on and they go further into the dinner, and consistently we finally have Lucas, who, after like some of the food is to be put out, and we'll see the whole time to where it gets Adam to just be really like mad at this, really upset at this. So Adam goes on and is to put some drugs into Lucas's drink. And so Adam is watching as Lucas is drinking this, like, yeah, drink up, buddy, drink up. So Lucas all of a sudden is to go on here, and as if like nothing's bothering him, but Lucas goes on and has this speech mentioning like, well, hey guys, like it seems like you kind of lived here for a while at this residency, and like I think it's about time that you guys need to go on and put pen to paper to sign off on this house, because really I have another offer that seems to be much more substantial, and so like let's kind of sign the contract that you guys are going to be living here. And Adam is telling Lucas that it's like, God, you were such a dick. You were such a manhood. You were such a fruiter, you. TV censor. So, he is a dictator, if you know what I mean. So, we go on and we have it where both Eve and Adam are trying to sweeten the deal. Because Eva is saying it's like, well, hey, like, well, like, we can just kind of leave this residence then, and I can take my stone, my artwork with me. Because Eva had unveiled this stone to Lucas, and he's like, oh man, a thing of beauty. And so Eva is going on and saying like, well, like, considering I haven't gotten paid for my work yet, this artwork that I left here, that I have here, then like, how about we go on and you can keep this stone permanently here, and this can work off like the amount of money that we owe you, free and clear. And Adam is going on and saying like, whoa, this seems like a big massive deal. And so Lucas is going on as like, well, you know what, like, this feels like a deal that I can seal here. Like, let's get like the paperwork out, let's sign things, let's go on, and so on and so forth. So all of a sudden, while they're starting to sign papers, and Adam is getting some cold feet on this deal, he's deciding that it's like, you know what, like, I don't think I can do this. And they're like, well, hey, like, Lucas is going on and just like, hey, just do whatever Eve tells you, because that's what you do anyways, Adam. Like, that's what Lucas is saying here. And it just gets to the point where Adam is just ticked at Lucas, to the point of him just chucking wine at Lucas. And so all of a sudden, Lucas realizes that Adam is to grab this other glass. So they're kind of tossing over it, they're grabbing onto it. And Lucas is reminding Adam, hey, this glass that we're holding is made of glass, so we're gonna break it. So they decide to take the glass down, but then Adam just grabs another glass of wine and chucks it at Lucas. So either way, he's getting two things of wine. So all of a sudden, Lucas is to go on and take Adam down, um, because of course Lucas was to ask Adam to slap him before, and Adam's like, no, I don't want to hit you. And then Lucas is like, well, you're a wuss. And then so Adam just freaking slaps him in the face. And then when Adam comes back, Lucas goes on and is to like torque this guy's arm to make him like tap out or submit. And Lucas, of course, is watching Adam do so. I'm like, yeah, you wuss. So we then go on and have both Lucas and Adam wrestling again. And so Lucas is now telling Adam, like, who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? And Adam's like, well, possibly me, right, Chloe? It's like, oh my god. Now the big reveal where, like, it's possible that Adam here may be the dad to Chloe's baby. And we have at this point where, like, people are like, huh? It's like, yeah, it's true. So we of course have some slapping going on, because of course, why wouldn't we? But so after this moment, we're going on, we're having people kind of distraught here, and so people are kind of like leaving the room for a moment, and so on and so forth. All of a sudden, there seems to be a ding dong at the door. Eva is to get the door, to all of a sudden be seemingly having a crow and a goat of sorts that seems to be at this door via their mask. So these two men go on and tape Eva up here, and then bring her in to this room. And so, of course, Lucas and Adam end up getting zip tied here and taped up to the face. And all of a sudden, we have Chloe, who is not in this room, who is to see what's going on. And so she decides that she's going to run off. She technically has a cell phone here, and I would have thought that she would have gone on at some point and, like, speakerphoned it and, like, call the cops. But I guess she didn't do that. So we go on here and have Chloe, who's getting in her car and running away via her car. And all of a sudden we have this one car who crashes into Chloe's car, and basically they haul her all the way back to this place. So, because they, I guess, had this grand master plan to just kind of have one person kind of wait out these people. To kind of see if anybody was going to scramble here or get out of here. So somebody did. It seems for a lot of times of which that these guys aren't really talking to one another, or they're not saying anything. Here's the goofy thing that doesn't make sense in this movie. So we have all these men who obviously are not talking, so that way these people won't get revealed their identities. But in my mind, I'm thinking all of these men are not wearing gloves. And we have one guy who is to, I think, be the crow, who's going throughout this house and breaking things and spray painting stuff and going on and creating this, like, Jack Nicholson kind of reign of destroying things. So we we have this guy while he's going through and destroying things. Immediately, I'm like, this guy's not wearing gloves. Like, anybody could, after the fact, if these guys even get away with this, will immediately go on and be outed by police officers and be hunted down. And so, like, all of this will all be for naught. They might as well should have just went in there and whipped off their masks and said who they are anyways, because more than likely, like, they could have figured it out either way. Like, they would have had to have, at the end of all this, killed every person in there and still wiped everything down. Like, they would have to burn the whole house down, and then they could have gotten away with it. But still, like, there probably would be, like, fingerprints somewhere. Anyways, it is what it is. So we go on and we have all four of these people all kind of kneeling down, and they're having this spray painted circle thing, which I don't like. There is a lot of stuff about this whole like event thing where I just didn't understand what was the point of the circle. There was no point. It's just like, hey, don't go past this line. What happens if you don't go past the line? Nothing, because nobody does it. So we go on here, and so Lucas is to be grabbed, and Lucas is to be grabbed so that way he can go on and have this confession video be recorded, so they can go on and use to humiliate Lucas. And so Lucas, of course, is covered with some kind of blood of sorts. I'm assuming it's like cornstarch or whichever. But I'm like, man, like this guy probably like this must suck, because like this is getting like all in his eyes, just clearly like dribbling all in his eyes. So we go on here and we have Lucas, who is to make this confession after his head is seemingly with blood upon it. So Lucas goes on, and he, of course, is to mention that he is a liar and he's a thief and all this and that he is to confess that he was to have brought upon a heart attack of the Wicks family, and like just kind of confess all these things that aren't really true. But Lucas has to say all of this because Chloe's life is on the line, because one of these guys are kind of bringing this like weird looking knife to this girl's face. So we go on, we have Lucas who says all this stuff, and then they watch the video over and over and over to kind of see if it all works, and I guess they maybe edit it or something like that. And so we're just like, well, is that it? Like, is that all like we really need with this character? And it kind of feels like they don't really do anything else after that. Like, it's just like that's all they needed, and like they weren't gonna like beat this guy to death. They weren't gonna go on and have like the characters wrestle one another to death, because if they were already have these kind of crow, goat, whatever people come in here realizing that to the people who are already wrestling, it's like, well, hey, just keep going, like fight to the death, and we'll like let one of you free. That could have been an interesting thing. That could have been an interesting part of this story. But yeah, like it seems like after that moment, like there's nothing left to do. So we go on here and we have the crow who goes throughout this entire place and knocks everything over, destroys everything. And so what ends up happening here is eventually at some point we have these characters start to realize that the actual weapons in these guns aren't actually loaded. So we go on here and have at one point where of course we have it where certain guys are going outside just kind of check perimeter and stuff like that, And so while that's happening with the kind of the fewer people left, we have at one point where like the crow guy is kind of by himself. So we of course have Lucas, who realizes that this guy's weapon isn't loaded. So Lucas goes and breaks his tie, and he goes on and is to jab the crow with this kind of knife, kind of corkscrew thing in the face and kill him. And so we have Lucas, who like runs for his life because now all of a sudden the drugs that he's on is starting to kick in, and so it's like, oh crap. Like, so Lucas could be their saving grace, but this guy is high as a kite probably. So what good is that going to do? So we then go on and have uh, another guy come in with a shotgun, and so they realize like, oh well, this gun probably isn't loaded either. So Eva takes this guy down, and so they wrestle with him, and so Adam is to kind of tape this guy up, and then they take his gun from him, and they are now kind of like, okay, like what's the grandmaster plan? And so the grandmaster plan is to have Adam run after Lucas because he's high anyways. And so now Lucas is to go on and find one of these guys, is to just unmask himself, and this guy is Neil. And so we find out that the guys who were in the beginning of this movie, who were tied to this dad who had a heart attack and died, we go on and we find that these guys are here to try and go on and snuff these guys out. But really all they were trying to really want to do is humiliate this guy, and that's all they really needed. Like, they didn't really need anything else. So we go on and we have Lucas, who just decides to wrestle and tackle frickin' Neil to the ground and just beating the crap out of him. And so Adam goes on and finds both of them. By the time he does, like, both of these guys are kind of just this bah. So we have Neil, who's kind of kneeling on top of Lucas, and is kind of snuffed him out here, has kind of choked him to death here. And so by the time that Adam gets there, Adam is consistently telling Neil to just get back. Like, hey, this gun is loaded now. And so Adam, of course, is to choke with shooting this man. And so we go on and have Neil, who grabs the gun from Adam and makes their way back to this house. So now I think there is potentially just now like there's three guys. No wait, there's so no, there's two left because the crow was to be killed. So yeah, I think there's only two left now. So we go on and they kind of lift the mask of the guy that's inside, and they find out that it's Dan. The guy, of course, that Dan was hitting on Eva earlier in the movie, and just like, I want me a piece of that kind of thing. So we go on and have Adam that's making it back into the house, and so what he's to propose to the other women is like, well, hey, like, I have an idea. Like, we can go on and kind of separate them from their weapons and try to get away. So, like, that's their master plan. So Adam is to go on and tell these men, it's like, well, hey, like, how about we go on and, like, you guys want the deed to this residency anyways. How about we just give this place to you and we just get out of here? Like, you'll never see us again. We won't tell anybody we did what we did. Like, you guys can just go on and get the deed to this place. So we go on and we have Neil, who is asking Eva to go with him to find the deed, and Adam and Chloe are in this other room with Dan, who he has a weapon. So we go on, and as Dan is to fire his gun and is to kill Chloe, we go on and have like Adam wrestle with Dan, and is to go on, and I think he like grabs possibly Dan's gun here, and so maybe not. I'm not quite sure. I don't remember. So, but Adam's real thing that he goes off is to try to find where Eva is, and so Neil is by this window, and so Adam just tries to do the right thing, and he goes on and goes crashing through this window, having both Neil and Adam fall possibly to both of their deaths, but we find out that Adam is not dead. So Eva is to go outside and check and just kind of see Adam, who's just kind of laying on the ground there, assumed to be dead. So we then go on and have Eva and Dan here. So it seems that Dan is at some point had been stabbed into the shoulder here by Chloe before she was killed, because Chloe is kind of seeing Dan kind of rustle around with this gun, and Chloe is to take this knife and stab this guy in the shoulder, which is kind of very unusual place to like. You do realize you want to kind of kill this guy, right? Stabbing in the shoulder really doesn't do the job, but like, oh well, like Chloe ends up getting shot because of all that. So Dan is just kind of walking around with this sword in his shoulder, and so he goes all the way to where this stone is, and so it seems that Eva is to have the upper hand with this gun, and she's going to shoot Dan, but she just can't. She just can't pull the trigger. Maybe there was some romantic tanglement that we didn't know about. But Adam goes and he grabs the gun and he shoots Dan in the head, and so both of them are to hug things out, because really they're probably just either going to separate after this, or they're still just kind of like, well, like I guess we should give this relationship the old college try, because now, sadly enough, Chloe is dead, and like maybe they're probably not going to live here now after all these people died. So, really, there isn't much of any like calling the cops after this. I think they would probably just go on at this point and either like find Rice for the phone because their phones were wet, and then call the police, or go on and drive to the nearest place that has a phone and is to like desperately like tell them like, hey, like we need some serious help, like here's what's going on, but we need an ambulance here. I'm assuming for Adam, because I don't think Eva's injured whatsoever, but I think Adam probably has a number of probably things of glass somewhere within his body that he might be bleeding here. So with that said, that's just kind of how like the movie kind of fizzles out. Like the only problem that I probably have with this movie is like the finale of this film, where there's this like obviously like gray coloring that goes on here, which I'm just like, well, was this actually shot during the day, and then they kind of uh like change it to look much more like a gray. Like I would have just gone on and just had it be that like, hey, just like shoot this to be like the very next morning. Like you can go on and convince people like these people have been going through this the entire night, and that would be convincing enough. Um, but yeah, like I guess they just kind of use that filter to kind of gray things out to make it look like it's nighttime. But you can kind of tell through like what are actually nighttime scenes technically, and whatever. But anyways, so with that said, I think that technically covers everything for this film. That kind of is to be kind of sucky that it took me 49 minutes to talk about this film when the movie is 90 minutes, but that's always happens when I go into thorough details about anything. If I forgot about anything, let me know in the comments below, because comments are great, whether they be whatever they are. So by and large, thank you for watching this. Thank you for going on and watching this whole video, if that's what you did, or just kind of left at some point. Um, I do really appreciate it, anything that anybody does. So thank you. But I'm going to go out of my way to say I'm going to get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.